smartphone and tablets and stay connected. It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and you're good to go. NTA News mobile app, your access to real-time information.
I'm actually a passionate baker. I don't rest until everything is done.
When I entered university, anytime I'm broke, I'll make cupcakes and go and sell to the other students.
Decorating cake it's an artistic thing, and art is, dynamic.
Join us on Baker's World every Thursday on the network service of the NTA. Baker's World, celebrating creativity. Don't miss it.
And there's it starts.
World Bank lowers Nigeria's growth forecast to 2.9% amid insecurity on the performing oil sector. Oil prices broadly steady Wednesday as the US dollar held its ground against other currencies. It is 20 days to the end of the change in redesign currency process, and CBN says banks have this Friday as deadline to issue old currency notes. This is Business Express on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA. We're reaching you from Abuja, the nation's capital. I am Musa Abubakar. Now let's bring you up to speed with business development. The World Bank says Nigeria's economy will slow down to 2.9% in 2023 due to oil sector weakness. The bank disclosed this in its 2023 Global Economic Prospects report published on Tuesday and projects that Nigeria's economic growth will decelerate to 2.9% in 2023 and remain at that pace in 2024, which is barely above population growth. The report also noted that Nigeria's economy weakened to 3.1% in 2022, and this was due to a number of factors including lower crude oil, rise in production costs, crude oil theft, lack of payment discipline in joint ventures, and persistent underinvestment. The World Bank predicts that in the sub-Saharan African region, which accounts for about 60% of the world's extremely poor, growth in per capita income from 2023 to 2024 is expected to average just 1.2%, a rate that could cause poverty rates to rise, not fall. The bank report also stated that the world economy will grow by just 1.7% in 2023, a sharp fall from an estimated 2.9% in 2022. Now, earlier before the World Bank prediction, the IMF had on the 1st of January predicted that for much of the global economy, 2023 is going to be a tough year as the main engines of global growth, the US, Europe, and China will all experience weakening activity, and that 1/3 of the world economy will hit recession in 2023. The two predictions are the focus of our discussion today on the program, and Johnson Chukwu, CEO of Cowrie Asset Management Limited, joins us from Lagos. Hello, Mr. Chukwu. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and Happy New Year.
Well, same here. Well, first was IMF, who said 1/3 of world economy is expected to be in recession in 2023, and now agencies to strengthen their capacity to effectively deliver on the project.
Power and other infrastructure are meant to benefit the citizens, but in some cases, corruption and mismanagement of public resources by the agencies are taking part in the sensitization workshop to update their knowledge on the usage of the IMAC application.
We want to ensure accountability, so which means engaging with stakeholders that are involved in the delivery of that project is very critical, so that they can know that whatever they are doing, is being watched.
If the project is being cited in a particular community, anybody that is going there, that is in that community, can easily log in onto the iMark apps. If they have it on their phones, they can easily see and say, this particular project that is being cited here, this is the percentage of the completion it is. That's the essence of it.
The iMac application provides unique features that allow citizens to explore, view, comment, share, and engage with stakeholders and government projects being implemented around them. In Abuja, Neka Oku.
Well, the Central Bank of Nigeria will not go back on the decision to phase out the old Naira notes by end of January 2023 in order to create avenue for adequate circulation of the redesigned notes. Branch Comptroller Lagos State Godfrey Koyo, while interacting with some business operators at Balogun Market, said the bank has enough redesigned notes in supply for deposit money banks. Abolade Islami reports.
The inability of Nigerians to have access to the redesigned Naira note launched by the Central Bank of Nigeria since December 15, 2022 has generated concerns and worries about the scarcity of the notes in circulation. While many believe the Apex Bank will shift the deadline due to the high volume of liquidity yet to be retracted to commercial bank vaults, others query the position of banks for not making the notes available at various payment points. To allay the fears of Nigerians on the availability of the redesigned Naira note, Central Bank of Nigeria, through a sensitization meeting with stakeholders, reassured that necessary measures have been taken to ensure deposit money banks have enough redesigned notes for customers.
In circulation before now, and we are replacing. You will not expect 100% at the same time, but the banks, we are supplying to the banks, and the banks will be replacing them. But this is an order coming from the Apex Bank that all ATM machines henceforth should be loaded only with the new notes. And so we expect compliance from the banks, and we believe that they are complying because they know the implication of non-compliance.
The move by the bank to also educate stakeholders on the security features of the redesigned Naira notes resuscitated the hope of many.
To me, everything, I have seen it. In fact, all the notes. To me, I think it is perfect. In Nigeria, when something is introduced new, there's going to be complaint. Even when the other old notes, when it was first in circulation, it was the same thing. But as time goes on, if the old notes is out of circulation, they will appreciate what they have.
So far, before now, I'll say from the bank, we're not seeing much of it from the bank because they're still dispensing old notes. But
for now, it is a waiting game to see how the situation will be resolved as Nigerians count down to the January 31st, 2023 deadline.
Well, and now we rejoin Johnson Chuku. Johnson Chuku, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Apologies for
Well,
that.
a very good afternoon once again.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
Okay, first was IMF, who said 1/3 of world economy is expected to be in recession in 2023. And now the World Bank with this focus of a slower economy focus. What do these predictions mean?
Well, they actually indicate that for those of us who are among the emerging economies and third world economies, that the prospects of this year's economic outlook and that of this next year, that is 2024, are quite bleak. Basic thing are some of the factors they have highlighted that underpin their prediction are all present here. You have issues of high national debt, high interest rates, high inflation rate, high cost of funds, lack of capital flow into the economy. All these factors are all present in the country, in Nigeria. So in effect, it's for us to, for policy makers, to understand the challenges of the economy and then begin to build policies that will, to some extent, sidestep those looming risks inherent in the global economy.
Okay, high interest rates. We've seen inflation as well as Russia's invasion of Ukraine continues to be a drag on the economy. How long will this continue?
Well, if you look at those two reports, from IMF and the World Bank, their predictions were only limited to 2024. But it's expected that between now and 2024, the war in Ukraine would have been resolved somehow. But beyond that, a 2-year period would also allow policymakers opportunities to build bulwarks or protective systems or policies that will help them navigate through these periods. The major challenges we have is that many third world economies have huge public sector debt, which is crowding out investment in critical sectors of the economy. Secondly, we've seen high inflation rate have led to high interest rates in more mature economies or more advanced economies. And that has led to outflow of capital away from emerging economies. Some of these things are likely going to be resolved in the next 2 years. And that's why the predictions are limited to 2 years. So I think one could expect that by the time we get 2025, many of the challenges that the global economy is facing today would have been largely resolved.
Okay, let's come back to sub-Saharan Africa. Sub-Saharan Africa is set to account for about like 60% of the world's extreme poor. What does this focus mean for the region?
Well, it then means that the region could actually see a worsening of level of poverty. It's actually projected that per capita income in the region will average.
Individuals and corporate organizations' cash withdrawal limits under CBN's new monetary policy is now effective. The CBN implemented a new regulation capping weekly cash withdrawals at 5 million naira for businesses and 500,000 naira for individuals as of December 6, 2022, among other monetary transfer changes. Some analysts maintained that any policy that would revive the economy and put a stop to corruption as well as fraud should be supported.
It's going to help us to be disciplined. It's going to help the government to be able to track the funds that are in the economy so that from there, they will be able to bring up policies that will be effective in order to check or enhance the economic development.
In the coming elections, it will reduce vote buying.
Other observers said, despite the perceived hurdles the policy may create for businesses and the risk associated with e-payment systems, the policy comes with some benefits to the naira and curbing inflation.
There's nothing wrong in individual withdrawing 500,000 naira in a week. Remember, in fact, it was 100,000, which people hit against, and eventually they now reviewed it to 500,000. And I want to believe that an individual who has need for money can have, has other options to transfer money.
Society watchers say for a cashless economy to work seamlessly in Nigeria, A simple payment infrastructure tailored to Nigeria's largely uneducated society is required to aid speedy adoption. In Port Harcourt, Chidiebere Onyea.
Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria has issued a new directive instructing banks to end issuance of old notes to customers by Friday, the 13th of January 2023. This latest development has stirred up reactions from Nigerians as Boside Abel presents an update on the effectiveness of the directive by all deposit money banks.
Many Nigerians have continued to lament the lack of the newly redesigned Naira notes at ATM machines within the Federal Capital Territory, despite the Central Bank of Nigeria's directive that ATM machines should be loaded with the new notes. It's not easy gaining access into some of the premises of the banks after sighting our cameras, but after taking permission, we're given the go-ahead. So let's begin with this ATM spot.
If you are following the information we have concerning from the CBN and so on, the money is not forthcoming except from the ATM and extremely scanty.
The CBN also issued another directive that banks should end issuance of old notes to customers by Friday, the 13th of January 2023.
I'm happy because save me the stress of going to, at least when I'm going to buy something, I'm confident that they will accept the money. With this one, I know that sure banker, I'm going to get what I'm going there to buy.
If they don't comply with the new directive, I think they will be penalized, and I think that's a very good step. But aside from redesigning the Naira note, it has a lot of its own contribution in terms of curbing corruption and a lot of things.
Although some bank management told us off camera that they were yet to receive the notes, others assured they would meet up before the end of the day's session, while some were able to mix both the old and the new notes.
It makes me feel great because we are actually moving as a nation, and it's also helps us a lot to make sure that the economy grows a lot.
Actually, I feel happy. At least we have something called change this time around, and I know this will bring more greater things to our country, Nigeria.
As the countdown continues to the deadline of the retrieval of all the old Naira notes come January 31st, it is believed that the CBN will achieve the cashless policy regime for Nigeria. In Abuja, Boside Abel.
Well, thank you, Boside. It's now time we rejoin with Johnson Chukwu. Mr. Chukwu, it's good to have you back.
Thank you for having me back, and apologies to the viewers who have witnessed to breaking transmission.
Okay, well, is there a way to avert all these, tough times that we're looking ahead?
You know, one of the things that World Bank said in their own report is that policymakers, individual countries should develop policies that will help them navigate through these challenges. And I think for us, it's a clear call as a country that our policymakers must evolve policies that will allow us navigate through without getting hemmed in by what happens in Ukraine. Ideally, given the state of the economy, because the countries that are most affected are the smaller economies, countries with small population that are dependent on tourism. But for an economy with a broad-based productive sectors, Nigeria should not ordinarily be affected by what happened in Ukraine. One is that we are an oil exporting country. Should we improve our oil production, we should actually be a beneficiary of the war in Ukraine because it will lead to an increase in our reserve and stabilization in our exchange rate. Also, that will also help us manage our public debt because if our revenue, the revenue of government should improve, then the borrowing that we have seen in the past will also moderate. That would, a moderation in borrowing would allow government the latitude to invest in critical sectors of the economy. And that will also, then the second thing we need to focus on is improving the security around the country so that food production can improve. And then improving food production will lead to a decline in inflation. If we have a decline in inflation rate, improvement in government resources and reduction in national debt, then Nigeria should ordinarily not be part of these predictions of woes and doom. We should be able to navigate the next 2 years with a stronger economic growth rate beyond the 2.9% that has been predicted.
Well, is there a quick fix to this?
Well, there's never a quick fix to economic rebound, economic issues. There's always a lag effect. But the key thing is that, like say, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The next best time to plant is today. So if with these two publications, IMF and World Bank reports, the government policymakers decide to come up with the appropriate policies, then we should maybe in the next 6 months or 1 year begin to see the benefit of those policy changes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson Chukwu. Perhaps this conversation will continue another time, but it's good having you on the program.
My pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Okay. And now to energy. Oil prices were broadly steady on Wednesday as market participants were pulled in different directions by an unexpected build in U.S. crude and fuel inventories, global economic uncertainty, and China reopening its economy. Moving in and out of negative territory, Brent crude futures were up 53 cents or 0.7% at $80.63 a barrel earlier. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 41 cents or 0.6% to $75.53 a barrel. Let's see prices of oil and other commodities on the global commodities market. And now to the equities market. Stocks reversed Tuesday's losses Wednesday to see the all-share index rise by 0.55% to 51,729.87 points. 281.9 million shares were traded by investors in 3,679 deals valued at 8.158 billion naira. Equity capitalization closed at 28.